Hello class, this is Dr. Carl Letamendi. The purpose of this video is to help you all with a couple of the homework problems for Unit 1, specifically for Chapter 2, which may warrant usage of Microsoft Excel. For this first unit, you don't really have to use Excel, but I really wanted to show you all how to solve some of these problems. And of course, some of them are in the back of the book, with the exception of one, but I'm going to go ahead and work on, do them both so that you can have an understanding of how to solve these kind of problems. And forgive the background noise, I'm currently in a coffee shop, so there will be some ambient noise, but this is a short video, so it'll do, but I really wanted to get this out to you guys fairly quickly. So for the end of chapter 2 question, problem 2.11, the problem is is it specific to investment banking. So Cranjet Inc. is issuing 10,000 bonds, and its investment banker has guaranteed a price of $985 per bond. The investment banker sells the entire issue to investors for $10,150,000. So these are the three areas where we have to solve. What is the underwriting spread for this issue? And whenever we see spread, usually that's always going to mean difference, right? What is the percentage of the underwriting cost? And how much did Cranjet raise? So the first thing that we need to do is isolate what is given from the problem already. So we have 10,000, which is the number of bonds issued, right? So that's given from the problem. And then we have that each bond is $985, right? Price per bond. And the investment banker sells the whole lot, the entire issue, to the investors for $10,150,000. So then whenever you see these in Excel, like these hashtags, well, they're not hashtags, but you know what I mean. That just means that you have to make the column a little wider, okay? And so then this was the entire issue cost, right? Okay. So now the things that we need to figure out are underwriting spread. We also need to find the percentage of the underwriting cost. And then we want to know how much Cranjet raised, right? Alright, so to figure out the first part, which is the underwriting spread, what we need to do is take the amount of the entire sale, which is this, minus the number of bonds issued times the price per bond. So if you notice, let's do it over here. We'll do equals 10,000 bonds times $985 does not equal this, right? It equals $9,850,000. So basically what the underwriting spread is the difference between this number, the total cost of the transaction, and this, the number, which is the number of bonds issued times the price per bond, right? So then in order to do that, a quick and easy way is to just do equals, right? The 10,150,000 minus, and then we want to do the 10,000 times $985, and then that will give us $300,000, and that is the underwriting spread. Okay, and you'll be able to see that the answer is in the back of the book, but you need to show me how to get here in Excel. Okay, so then for every one of your problems that you're going to be doing in Excel, always try to highlight it. Okay, and it will really help to identify what is the answer and what is extra work that you've done. So for the underwriting cost percentage, it feels like we're actually going to have to work backwards, since we already know that this is the amount that was raised by Cranjet, and then we'll be able to calculate the underwriting cost. So as you move forward in these problems, don't necessarily think that ABC is the order in which you have to answer the question, okay? It's not, it is a trick question, I guess, when they put it like this. So we know that the amount raised is what? Is the number of bonds that were issued times the price per bond. So then we do equals, because that's how we tell Excel that we're starting a formula. We click on the 10,000 times, which is the star, the asterisk, and then the price per bond. And that gives us the $9,850,000. And now now that we have the underwriting spread and the amount that was raised, we can calculate the percent of the underwriting cost. And the percent of the underwriting cost is basically the underwriting spread, right, divided by the amount that was raised. So did you see that? I did equals the 300,000 divided by the amount raised, and then press enter, and that gives you this weird decimal. But you want to make sure that you click on here percent, and then always try to like add a couple of decimal spaces. So by adding 2 decimal spaces, I get 3.05%, which is in the back of the book. Okay. Now here's one that's not in the back of the book. Question 2.28. So let's read it. And this one is regarding interest rates. Imagine you borrow $500 from your roommate, agreeing to pay her back $500 plus 7% nominal interest in 1 year. Assume inflation over the life of the contract is expected to be 4.25%. What is the total dollar amount you will have to pay her back in a year? What percentage of the interest payment is the result of the real rate of interest? So there's a lot going on over here, right? A lot of stuff. And by the way, a 4.25% inflation is astronomical. It's unlikely to be that in 1 year. This is just, for the purposes of doing this assignment. Inflation is less than this, okay? You can check historical inflation. So now let's take what's given to us by the problem already. We have 500, right? Borrowed from roommate. And then we're going to pay her back the 500 plus 7% nominal interest in 1 year. Alright. So then we know that it's 1 year. Let's put that there also. It may be helpful to know that. And we expect inflation to be 4.25%, right? 4.25%. Expected inflation. Alright. So now we need to find out what is the amount that we're going to pay her back in 1 year. So let's put that here. Amount to pay back in 1 year. Then we're also going to need to find out the real rate of interest. And by the way, real rate of interest is covered in chapter 2. You'll see it there. You'll see the formula. And then also we need to find out the percent of interest payment due. No, percent of interest payment result of real rate of interest. Okay? Alright. So now we have our given, and then we have our 3 areas that we need to solve. So the amount that we're going to be repaying after 1 year is basically the amount borrowed times 1 plus the interest. And that gives us $535. Okay, and that's your first answer. So why 1 plus? Because we're increasing the interest. When you multiply anything by 1, you get that same number, right? So basically you're telling the formula here that you want to get back this original amount plus 7%. So like let's say you go, just a side example, let's say you go to a restaurant and you pay and you pay $25 for the tab, right? And you want to give a 15% tip. So then what you would do is you go total amount, right, times 1 plus this. And then here you'll get your original amount back plus 15% increase, all right? And that's why we do 1 plus. I know when I was doing my finance degree that I had that question a lot. So it's just like a little mathematical glitch. In this class you're gonna have to learn a lot of formulas, and there's gonna be some instances where you're like, oh, why, why is this formula like this? Why is it that? Just roll with it. Just stick to the formulas, and you'll be safe. Okay. So the next up is to calculate the real rate of interest. So in order to calculate the real rate of interest, what we need to do is we definitely need this, the nominal interest rate, which we have. We need the expected inflation, which we have. Okay. And if we follow the formula per the text, you'll know that you have to subtract 1. Okay. So then for the real rate of interest, we're going to do, since this is going to be in double brackets, and I'll show you in a sec what I mean. We're going to do 1 plus this, which is the 7%, divided by 1 plus expected inflation, and then we're going to have to do minus 1. But since we have to do minus 1, we want the formula to solve within this bracket first, so we're going to have to add another bracket here. And we're basically telling Excel that Excel needs to address this content first before subtracting the 1. Okay? And if we press enter, you'll get a decimal. And if you click on the percentage and then move the decimal spaces twice to the left, you'll get your answer, which is 2.64%. Okay, and the last part of the question, percent of interest payment as a result of a real rate of interest. Well, all we need to do is take our real rate of interest divided by 7, which is the nominal rate of interest. And when you get those pounds, it doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It just means you have to make this a little wider here. And it's probably a really big decimal. It is. So we want to reduce it down to 2 decimal places. And you will get 37.68%. And that's your answer. Lastly, we're going to do problem 2.29. And it's again about interest rates. Your parents, let's assume that your parents give you $1,000 a year before your graduation so that you can take a trip when you graduate. You wisely decide to invest the money in a bank CD, which means certificate of deposit, which is a savings account that pays 6.75% interest, which is like unrealistic nowadays. You know the trip costs $1,025 right now, and that inflation for the year is predicted to be 4%, which is also an unrealistic figure, but just roll with it. Will you have enough money in a year to purchase the trip? So let's take what's given from the problem. We know that the gift is going to be of $1,000. Gift from parents, right? We know that the CD account is going to pay 6.75 interest. What else do we know? We know that the trip right now costs $1,025. Okay, so that's the cost of the trip today. What else do we need to know? The inflation for the year is predicted to be 4%. Oop. Expected inflation. Alright, so then this is all given from the problem. So now, what do we need to do? We need to find out what the this is also, of course, assuming that you are going to put all of the money in the CD. So let's go through that assumption. We're gonna need to know the CD value after 1 year. We're gonna need to know the future cost of the trip, right? And we're gonna need to know, is there enough money for the trip? All right. So then for the CD value after 1 year, all we do is we take the amount of the gift and then we have to add the CD rate to find out how much we're going to have after 1 full year. So then we do equals $1,000, which is a gift from our parents, times 1 plus the CD rate, close parentheses. And that's going to give us our initial amount back, which is the gift from our parents, with an increase of 6.75%. And if we make that into money, that's $1,067.50. The cost of the certificate of deposit after 1 year. To determine the future cost of the trip, what we're going to want to do is similarly take the cost of the trip today and then multiply that by the rate of inflation. So make sure you put it in parentheses. 1 plus the expected rate of inflation, close parentheses. And then when you turn that into dollars, you get $1,000.66. So if you do the amount of the CD after 1 year minus the future cost of the trip, you'll have $1.50 left to spare. So to answer the question, is there enough money for the trip? Yes, there is. And that is the answer to question 2.29. So now in this video lecture, just to recap, we've gone over solving problem 2.11, 2.28, and 2.29 from the end of Chapter 2, Unit 1 for FIN3400. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out and I'll be more than happy to assist.